Welcome back to the story of C structs. In the first video I introduced structs and I had set up a program, structexample1.c, which is what you see over here on the right hand side, which had two student structs. Each one has a name, which is a pointer to a string literal, an age, and a pointer to the next student in a linked list of students. What I want to do in this video is tidy the program up a bit. And the first thing I'm going to do is introduce a new structure in C called a type def. There it is. This defines a new type, capital S student, please use capitals for types, new types, which is a type alias for those two words there. So any existing type followed by a new type and the word type def at the front defines a type alias. With that type alias, I can now write several things a lot more neatly. In particular, I can declare the new student here to be of type student, just as I could do in Python when I've defined a new class. This also can be improved a lot. I now have a const student star, much more readable, and I can even fill out or use the same approach here inside the struct itself, because I've already declared the type alias up there. So that's step number one. I think it's made the code quite a lot more readable. The next thing I want to do is move the global variables to the local function where they belong, which is inside main. So I'm going to get rid of that particular declaration of a student, and I'll just leave the type in place. That bit, as it stands, is now a sort of type declaration, or those two together are a type declaration. So now I'm going to declare or move that student down here, and I'll have another one. I'll need the first one as well, student 1 and student 2. So far so good. The program now still compiles and will still run. The next thing I want to do is get rid of the clunky initialization process here. I declare a student, then I go through and painstakingly fill out the fields with assignments. Pretty clunky. But there's a better way. That's to use the curly brace sort of approach that we can use when we initialize arrays. Except that when we initialize structs, we have to list the field values rather than, well, just as with arrays really. Charlie, aged 16, and the pointer for this student, because I don't have any other students yet, has to be the null pointer. Similarly with Fred, who is of age 23, and his next pointer is also null. That gets rid of all of that. There's one thing that remains to do, and that's to link the students together so that student 1 points at student 2. So to do that, I go student 1.next equals the address of student 2. Notice there's a dot here. I just want to emphasize the fact, sorry, that should have been student 2. I want to emphasize the fact that the dot notation is used when you have an actual student, but when you have a pointer to one, as we have up here, then you use the arrow notation. So with those changes, let's just check I've got it right, compile and run, all looking good. I've taken you now to the state of this piece of code in the lecture notes, more or less. There's one more change I wish to make, and the change I wish to make is to refactor that function a little bit to use a support function. I'm doing this mainly so you get the idea of different ways of passing structs around as parameters. So I'm going to have a void print one student. It's essentially print student, but I decided that the name was too similar to print students. It was just inviting trouble. So this parameter, this function takes as a parameter a student like so. Now notice this is a student, not a student star. I'm passing a struct by value, which you can do. The whole lump of memory gets copied in here, not like arrays. Please don't get these confused. When you're passing arrays, you're passing a pointer. When you pass a student struct, you pass it by value unless you explicitly ask for a pointer. So now I can copy this line of code out of that function, paste it in here, except that I have a student object, not a student pointer. So I use the dot notation. And now I can call it by saying print one student. And the student I wish to print is the one that's pointed to by my current pointer. So the student object is indirect through the student pointer. Right, compile and run. Prove it all still works. Those are the main things I wanted to put into this video. To recap briefly, first of all, I introduced a type alias, which I strongly encourage when you're using structs, because the syntax struct student underscore s as a type is just downright clunky, so you do that first. That allows you to use notations like student star with the capital S for the type, please, and makes the code a lot more readable. Second thing I introduced was the ability to initialize a struct using a comma-separated list of the field values inside braces. And the third thing I introduced was the idea that you can pass structs by value, or you can pass pointers to them like so. Thanks for watching. Bye.